What's up, pen people? I have something really exciting to show you today. It's a new pen from Esterbrook, and it is really cool because it is actually, it's like a throwback pen, but it has been redesigned into something more modern. And I'm talking about the new Esterbrook JR fountain pen. It's supposed to be like the old Esterbrook J pocket pen, something that looks like this. I'm sure you guys have seen the old Esterbrook J's. You can find them on eBay, Peyton Street, online. They sell vintage pens. Well, Esterbrook has decided to redo this pen in a modern sense. And it's actually pretty exciting. I'm actually very excited about these because from what I've seen so far, it's really cool. The pen comes in the usual Esterbrook textile covered box with a magnetic closure, and comes with a nice polishing cloth, which is always useful. And then here is the JR pen. Guys, look at this. Oh, it's so pretty. It is so cool. And you know what's really gonna knock your socks off is how much Esterbrook has paid attention to the detail of the J and brought it to the JR pen. Let's take a look at the pen. All right, so it's a small pen, it's supposed to be a pocket pen. And just for comparison purposes, I'm gonna show it to you next to a regular Esterbrook SD. So as you can see, there's a considerable size difference between these two pens. And then let me show it to you next to an oversized SD. So as you can see, yes, it is the size of a pocket pen. Let's look at this clip here. It's very nice. Spring it, clip on to whatever you need to clip it to. But you might notice that these details are very similar to the old Esterbrook J. The only difference is the clip is elongated and it no longer has the Esterbrook logo on it. In fact, they moved the Esterbrook logo to this band around the bottom of the cap. So you might notice that the band at the bottom of this cap, still an homage to the old J, but the new JR has those similarities. They've just done all kinds of stuff where they've paid attention to details, such as, the ends of the pen here, the jewels. Here we have the Esterbrook quatrefoil logo, and which also matches this part here. I mean, it's just very thoughtful, extremely thoughtful. Take off this cap and let's take a look at the nib. So this one comes with it's a small number 5 nib, and this one is in gold. This has gold trim. Look how beautiful it is with this blue resin. I mean, it's gorgeous. And what's really cool is, so you have the new nib. Let's compare it next to an old nib. So this has an old Esterbrook nib on it. The shape, in my opinion, is quite similar. In fact, writing with this nib, the nib kind of has a very familiar feeling to these vintage nibs. Now check this out, which I was blown away the first time I saw it, the feed. The feed on the new Esterbrook JR is quite similar to the feed of the classic. The shape, the fins, it's just like really cool. At the bottom of the section, there's even that little bit of flare that comes out, very similar. Now, the threading is also, I mean, they're not like identical or anything, but you can absolutely pick out where they paid an homage to the classic pen. As far as size is concerned, they're actually very similar. You know, the new JR is a bit longer compared to its classic counterpart. But overall, there are, you know, it's a really cool update. I really appreciate that. This has a bladder inside of it where you've got to fill it using this mechanism right here. The new JR is a cartridge converter. And in fact, it comes with a cartridge and it also comes with its own converter. So that way you don't have to deal with, you know, bladders inside the pen and all that stuff. And you can also check how much ink you have in there. As far as posting, it posts a little shallow, but I think what's nice and why they did this, so here it is posted. So as you can imagine, if it posted any deeper, it would make the pen really small. But since this is a pocket pen, it kind of does a very similar thing to what the Kaweco pens do, whereas a Kaweco Sport with the cap on, it's very small. It could fit right in your pocket. Okay, with that same concept in mind, the Esterbrook JR, the cap posts a little shallow, so I'd have to say it goes right to about here. But that way, when you're using the pen, it converts itself nearly into a full-size pen, which feels really nice in the hand, and it doesn't feel top-heavy whatsoever. And then when you put the cap back on, it goes back to this compact size. So stuff like that, I get very excited about. In fact, I'm just like, I'm so excited. I just love all the thoughtfulness. So let's compare that with the way this cap posts. It's very similar with the classic pen. So it's still a shallow post to convert it into a bigger pen for you to use, but still compact enough to carry. So here they are next to each other. This color is called the Capri, the Capri with gold trim. So it's beautiful blue with gold trim. But the JR is not gonna just come with this color. It also is going to come into other colors, such as, here's the Tuxedo with a silver trim. And then the Carmine, which is more of a red. So like this is more gray, this is more of a red with silver trim. They make quite a nice set. I think all the colors are fabulous. The blue is really, I think this is really gonna be popular with people. But if you want something a little more subdued and classic, I mean, because this is like, I don't know, the blue and the gold trimmed together, it just feels very dressy. That makes sense, even though this one is called Tuxedo. But the Tuxedo is very nice. You've got silver nib, same treatment to the feed, posts like that. I love that color. I think it's real nice. This one has a stub nib on it. So that does come in different nibs, stub, fine, extra fine, medium. And I think I've got this one inked with 3 Oysters Dan Shong. I don't speak Korean, so excusez-moi, that's French. Well, the next thing to do is let's do some writing samples. I'm going to fill this one up, the Capri, up with ink and do a writing sample with it. This one has an extra fine nib on it. And I'll also do writing samples with the Carmine and the Tuxedo since they have different nibs on them as well. I'll also do a writing sample using the vintage Esterbrook pen just for comparison purposes. thank you so much for joining me at this look at the new Esterbrook JR pocket pen. A really cool throwback to a classic. I'm sure that a lot of your favorite retailers will be carrying this, and I'm gonna have to say that you should go get one. I think they're a lot of fun. I think it's a great value, steel nib, beautiful resin bodies. What's not to love? Well, that's how the ink flows.